Today is March 5th, 2009. My name is Lori Preston, and we are here at Randolph-Macon College as part of the Living Legacies Oral History program, talking with John Ames, class of 1970 today. Also here with us today is Sarah Hendricks. Mr. Ames, of course, graduated in 1970. He currently is president of the Independent Plan Coordinators, a benefits planning company in Virginia Beach, Virginia. After graduating from Randolph-Macon, he served as an officer in the U.S. Navy. He joined Exxon Corporation short after that, and in 1975 worked with a variety of life insurance companies.
Yes.
Until opening his own business in 1982. So welcome, Mr. Ames.
Glad to be here.
Okay, our first question for you is, how did you first hear about Randolph-Macon College? Who told you about it?
My father, since he's an alum. I've known Randolph-Macon probably since I could walk, since I've been able to walk. And been coming down here since the early 50s. He's had trustees meetings and Society of Alumni. And that's how I know the college.
Okay, and Mr. Ames's father, John Lewis Ames, was class of 1933 and a 30-year member of the Board of Trustees?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. What kind of impressions did you have of the college as a child coming down with your father?
It was great to leave home and go on a trip. I guess a lot of it was he was in meetings a lot. So we spent time with the Morelands, Mrs. Moreland. Dr. Moreland was the president of the college at that time. And I had cousins that lived in Bon Air also at that time, so we went over there. But it was fun seeing the college students and going to the football games. And, of course, in the spring we'd see a baseball game. And it was quite interesting. Of course, at early age, you didn't really know what was going on. You just tagged along and did what you were told to do.
Do you remember anything particular about things some of the students did? Anything that left an impression?
I remember the freshmen wearing beanie caps. That's what I remember. That made an impression.
Now, as a child, was it understood that you were going to go to Randolph-Macon, or was there some choice there?
No, my father never pushed Randolph-Macon. In fact, I got accepted to a bunch of schools, and it was my decision on where I wanted to go.
Okay. What made you decide on Randolph-Macon?
I liked coming south. I got accepted to Bowdoin, but I didn't want to go up to Maine for 9 months of winter. And there was a long family legacy at Randolph-Macon. So decided to keep that going.
Okay, now you were a psychology major.
Yes.
And was that something you had determined before you came to school, or?
No, not at all. It's something I decided while I was in school.
Okay.
I liked the subject, and I liked the teachers, the professors.
Okay. Can you tell us about some of the professors?
Let's see. The ones that stand out, of course, is George Oliver. Had him for history. He was very good. Dr. Acey was psychology. So was Dr. McEwen. And trying to remember, physics teacher, I think, was Dr. Bischoff. I'm not quite sure if that's correct or not. I don't think so. No, I don't think that was right. Those are probably the three that made an impression upon me.
Okay. And you mentioned two of those as psychology professors, certainly.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you have a different major in mind when you came to school? Or just weren't really sure?
I was thinking about history.
Okay.
I was thinking about going on to law school. My father was a lawyer. And, of course, everything back then is, if you wanted to, was history. For some reason, to go to law school. But, no, I decided on psychology. I liked it, and it went very well.
Okay. And this is a question we always ask everyone, since you're giving scholarships for other students to be able to afford an expensive education. How did you afford the Randolph-Macon education? Did you have jobs? Did your father pay? Did you have any scholarships yourself?
My father paid for school. I had scholarship my freshman year. After that, my father paid. Of course, everything's relative, but it was a lot cheaper back in the 60s than it is now. But we were fortunate enough that he could pay the tuition.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any jobs while you were here at school?
No.
Okay.
No, I only had summer jobs when I went home.
Okay. Can you tell us a little about when you arrived on campus as a freshman? What kind of things did you do when you first got here?
When I first got here, I was playing football, so I came down early.
Okay.
And it was basically playing football, and then classes started. It was acclimating yourself to class. And, of course, being away from home was different. You had to get into the study habits, which took me a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think it takes everybody a while. Mm-hmm. But it's basically going to class. We had classes 6 days a week.
In the 70s?
The 60s,
Or 60s,
late 60s.
Late 60s, right?
Yes.
Wow.
We had Saturday classes.
Okay.
Saturday morning classes. And so it took a while to get in the swing of things, but you decided to, and you made friends with the kids on the dorm. And you'd go do things. You played basketball if you did, or as a freshman you met with the different fraternities to see
Mm-hmm.
who was going to rush. And but most of the time you just try to get acclimated to a different way of life.
Okay, and which dormitory did you live in?
Thomas Branch when I first got here.
Okay. Yeah.
All the freshmen were in Thomas Branch.
What was Thomas Branch like at the time?
Loud. Old.
Yes, yes, well before the renovation.
Yes, in need of paint.
Water stained.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, not what you expected, or?
Well, of course, I had seen the school ever since I was little, so I sort of knew what to expect as far as facilities.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you actually able to study in your room much, or did you go to the library or somewhere else?
I mostly studied in my room.
Mm-hmm. So it was either quiet enough or you could block out the
It-
noise?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was in a corner room, so I was away from the stairs.
Okay. Okay. Now, do you recall who your roommates were over time?
My freshman year, I didn't have a roommate.
Oh.
I was by myself. Andy Gray was across the hall. And Akers was down the hall. McClure was also on the hall. It was a good group of people.
Okay. Now, other than football, which you've mentioned, what other activities were you in? I know you actually did pledge to a fraternity.
Yes, pledged SAE, which they got the charter, I guess it was the end of my freshman year, from Phi Alpha to SAE. Pledged them my sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
That's because grades weren't so hot in my freshman year.
Okay.
But I came back and made Dean's List sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
So I also ran track.
Mm-hmm.
And those were two. I didn't play football after my freshman year. And I ran track.
Mm-hmm.
And concentrated on getting my grades up.
Mm-hmm. Always important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you ever live in the fraternity house?
No, I did not.
Okay,
After
so you
that,
lived in
I lived in
dormitories?
motel dorms.
Okay. Okay. And what were they like at the time?
A lot better than Thomas Branch. They were nice. They were fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we actually have the only picture we have of you here in the yearbook for 1970 is with the fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
And you're all hanging on the roof of the fraternity house.
Yes.
Most of you.
And we hadn't even been partying.
Yeah. Yeah, the fraternity would definitely have a problem with that these days.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But we do have, of course, some pictures from the other years. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys did in the fraternity? You know, the stuff that's not the secret pledge stuff that you can't tell us.
Mostly during the day. I wasn't at the fraternity. In the evening, just like there are today, there'd be card games, be studying. If we had tests coming up, different people. on the weekends, since we had the large side yard, we played football or frisbee. A lot back then, a lot of students left campus on the weekends, unless there was a party weekend going on. But, you'd have your parties and socials, and the girls down from Murray, Washington, or up from Richmond. But during the day, like I said, it was mostly going to class, doing your own thing. And then when you had time, I went over to the fraternity house.
Okay. Now, did you date any of the girls from Mary Washington or Richmond or
No, I
local
did not.
girls? Or
No, I did not.
you're serious, huh? Serious student.
No, I wasn't a serious student. I wasn't dating, really.
Okay.
I did have a girlfriend back home in New York.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But, did go out on some dates, but, never serious with anybody.
Okay. Now, if you could tell us a little more about your classes and the professors. You mentioned Dr. McEwen and some of the others. Anything particular about them that inspired you?
I think with all the professors, it was their, how would you say, generosity with their time, that you could go to them anytime if you needed help, and sit down with them. The classes were small, so, they knew who you were. And that was nice. I did like that. I know people went to big schools and you'd sit in there with 100-something students in a lecture hall. And that was one of the reasons coming to Randolph-Macon was the student-to-teacher ratio. All the professors I met or had were really dedicated to their job and to help the students. Of course, it was a little bit different back in that time. It's not as, how would you put it, not as open as it is now. You could see the line between the student and the teacher. It wasn't really getting buddy-buddy with you. They were there to help you and help you mature.
Do you have any particular stories about incidents in classes or any of your professors?
Incidents?
You don't have to name names, but we like names.
You like names. In class, probably end of my junior year, I guess majoring. You get down to the Camptown races. Of course, it's party weekend then. And, it was sort of, you take a paper cup to class. And, which was frowned upon, but one of the professors would look at you and say, "What do you have in there?" You just say, "Refreshment." He came over and said, "Let me see." And, took a taste and said, "That's pretty good. Can I have another one?"
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about Camptown races? We have photos, but
it was just a good weekend. It's of course went out to the farm. We had a project where we fraternity house. We redid a person's pool, and they let us have a party there afterwards. But just sitting on the hill, watching first of all the dog races and the horse races. And, of course, you're out there with your thermos and blanket. It was just a good weekend. Of course, it was near the end of school, and it was just unwinding from a whole year.
And a lot of other college students from other colleges would come. I mean, it brought in more than just Randolph-Macon students.
I'm sure people from Richmond, even had UVA people.
Yeah, my father went to William and Mary, and he said that they always came up. I told him I was working at Randolph-Macon, he was like, "Oh, Camptown races used to be the best weekend of the year."
It got crowded. Of course, we knew the back way into the track.
Right.
So we didn't sit on the line with all the other cars. But it was fun. It was a good time.
Okay. Any other events that you recall?
It's in Chicago. came?
Oh,
with the bands?
the bands that were here. I guess, who do we have? Well, back then was Dionne Warwick.
Dionne Warwick came to Randolph.
Came to Randolph-Macon?
Yeah,
Really?
Little Anthony and the Imperials.
Okay.
And Chicago did come.
Wow.
They were known as Chicago Transit Authority at that time.
I remember.
CTA.
I remember.
Then they changed their name. That was when they were just starting out. Or had been in about a year, I guess. And that was very interesting. That concert was in the gym
Hard to imagine.
in Crenshaw. Yeah, they set one end of the stage up.
Wow.
And
Was it a big crowd? Was it just pretty much Randolph-Macon students, or was it a big draw
it was
outside?
pretty much Randolph-Macon students.
Okay. Wow.
So, I have a question about teachers and administrators as well. Were there people who had taught your father or who had worked here for your father who were still here when you got here? I mean, were there?
No. They were all gone.
So I know that there was
Right.
it was in the 50s where most of the old people.
Mm-hmm. There was a
School
big
expanded.
shift.
And there was a wide gap between when my father. Of course, my father was here when he was. Oh, let's see. First came here, I'd be 29, so I guess he was 17 years old when he came to school.
And was he from New York as well?
Yes, he grew up in Lynbrook, but he was first raised on the eastern shore of Virginia, in Painter. He was born down in Virginia.
So that's how he ended up back in Virginia. for
He's
school.
always liked Virginia. And I think I was the only kid growing up that knew what grits were on Long Island.
Probably.
That
On the
and-
other hand, the
that
kids
and
down here
fish
didn't know
roe.
what a bagel was, so.
Tidewater fish roe.
Okay. We'd already asked you a little bit about your roommates. Can you tell us about some of the other guys you used to hang out with, some of your friends here at Randolph-Macon?
It's been so long. Well, let's see. My cousin went here. He was a class ahead of me. Let's see. When I was here, Howard Stevens was here. Stayed on the same hall. He was the first African American to come to school. I guess he was from the Harrisburg area. He was quite a character. Let's see. If you want,
Would
I
you,
don't know.
okay, we'll go ahead and start again.
All right, I guess we were talking about students. See, one comes to mind is Bruce Atkins. I remember Bruce, especially upon graduation. Of course, I was going to head back to OCS, and Bruce had gotten, I guess, he was in the Marines. And graduation ceremony, he was in his uniform. And of course, he was standing right behind me, and everybody else had cap and gown. Bruce had his dress whites on. So that was a little different. I guess Bill Murray I played football with. I understand he's up in the D.C. area, worked with the government. I guess I saw him probably about 10 years ago when we had a reunion. Andy Gray, who I knew, during school, I know he's down in Florida now, but I've rarely had contact with very many of the people that I went to school with. Bruce is probably the most since we were on the Board of Associates together, and we've kept in touch. Professors, looking through. John Longacre, I guess my last class was the, back then they called it colloquy, the January term. That was just in its second year, and I finished up school a semester early. And that last course, we went to Mexico City.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun. And he was the one that chaperoned us. And learned a lot about the Mexican art and seen where the Olympics were down there. But we had a couple of days, and a whole bunch of us took a bus to Acapulco from Mexico City. And there are quite a few of us that had imbibed a bit before boarding the bus.
Not typical students, no.
No, not at all. And
Bugs?
all I could remember is the bus driver was there. It was at night. And I guess you'd call her a hostess or whatever on the bus. And she just talked all night long. And I think it was to keep the bus driver awake.
Good thing.
So there was, I guess there was a bunch of us on the way back. To get back, we pooled money and flew back because we weren't going to ride the bus.
You didn't want to listen to her again.
Didn't want that trip. Of course, Paul Webb had him for phys ed, but I've seen him at several occasions because he's down in Norfolk area. And I see him, and I remember him from when in school. He lived in one of the old houses along Henry Street, where the Estes Dining Hall is now. Those are all little houses there. A.E. Pi had its fraternity there. I think Hugh Stevens lived in one, and Paul Webb lived in a house. Then I guess the Stevens moved over to across from the English building, one of the brick homes over there.
Okay.
They knew. And I guess there was a family there, the Majets, that we used to stay with too when we came down as a kid. Let's see, who else? Professor Ward for music appreciation. That was a good class.
Did you appreciate music properly?
Yes, I was brought up with music. Played an instrument since the 4th grade and took piano lessons, and my mother was on the symphony board up in New York. Not the New York Philharmonic, but on Long Island. Mentioned Dr. McEwen, Purnell Pannell, excuse me. I never had him a professor, but used to talk with him. Very nice gentleman.
Yeah, was that when he was still Dean of Men?
Dean of Men was Ira.
Ira Andrews by the time you got here, yeah.
Mhm.
He was Dean of Men after Dr. Pannell.
And Dr. Mabry was the Dean of the college, I
Right.
believe. And for the first couple of years, Dr. Moreland was the president. Then it was Luther.
Luther White.
Luther White became president.
Did you see much transition between Dr. Moreland's presidency and Luther White's as a student?
No, not really. It could have been on the administrative side. That most of it. I know from a young age that my father and Willis Lipscomb, who was the chair of the board, of course he was vice president of Pan Am, and both of them being businessmen, they always said we need more businessmen on the board in order to raise money versus the ministers. So they were always pushing for businessmen to be on there.
Well, that's certainly another thing during your college years was that the college came very close to closing because of financial problems. As students, were you aware of how dire the situation was
No,
at the college?
not at all.
Well, that's good. That's good. Actually.
My father didn't even tell me until afterwards.
That's good that the students didn't know, I think.
Hey, did your father tell you? I mean, he must have participated to some extent in the selection of Luther White. I mean, it's you know, the board. Were you aware of the ins and outs and the?
No,
No,
not at
just
all.
Blissfully unaware.
Yeah, I didn't want to know that stuff. You know, what went on behind the scenes.
Right.
Do you think people knew that you were the son of a trustee?
Yes. I don't know if anybody, close friends and classmates did, because they'd see him at least twice a year when he came down. There was one that you did mention, when my father was here, any professors. I was just looking through, and Robert Epps Jones. I think he was a student teacher
Okay.
when my father was here last year. I had forgotten all about that.
Yeah, a lot of the advanced students acted as student teachers, and then they came back before they got advanced degrees and taught for a bit often.
That's what I understand, yes.
Retail as well.
Then they got their advanced degrees, and then they came back again.
And the other one I did was Roddy Jones, I knew, because he was
Okay.
director of alumni back then. So I'd known him before I came to school.
Okay. Now, any other professor stories or any incidents you recall happening as a student? Certainly the late 60s on college campuses, there was huge transition time.
Yes, we had
How much of that happened here?
There were quite a few students. I went, probably a handful of students that went up to Woodstock from here. A couple of my fraternity brothers
Really?
that went to Woodstock. I wasn't paying any attention to that. Because I guess from the end of my junior year, I went to half of OCS with the Navy up in Newport. It's what they called the ROC program. And then came back to school. And then when I finished my senior year, I went back and finished the last part of OCS and then went on active duty. So it was concentrate keeping the grades up, get back. And of course I finished up early by a semester.
Okay.
I guess some of the pranks, you'd move students' rooms out into the parking lot.
We haven't heard that one yet.
Did that with my roommate.
Oh, no.
Happened to be my cousin.
Oh, no.
Tommy had a way about him. And super individual. But he'd take the road trip up to Mary Washington. And he had a certain knack of teeing people off once in a while. And we just decided to move his part of the room out into the parking lot.
No.
Outside of the dorm. And we actually ran extension cords, put his light up on the desk. And of course, we knew about what time he was going to be back, and all of us were just quiet. And he did mention to me that he came around, pulled around to the parking lot. He started laughing. He said, somebody got nailed. Then he discovered it was his. He came in the end of that motel dorm and just pounded on every door. Like, wake up, wake up. He got to our room. He's going, Ames, I know you did this. That was good. What was the other one when we were here? Oh, he wanted a television. So we went down to Goodwill and bought a television like for about $10. And I guess it's 68. The election year. And of course the television was in our room. You had the bunk beds, and we had a bunch of the football players on the dorm. And we were all interested in seeing what was going on in the election. So we got that television on. It was old black and white. And Tommy had like I said, the knack of just doing what he did. And he had the top bunk. And he made the statement saying, I don't want anybody up on my bunk. That was it. Everybody just piled up there. And what was it? One time I think Tommy got picked on a lot. We took his mattress off but made the bed up. But then I guess one night we did take everybody's car, because people leave their cars open. They wouldn't lock cars. And we put them all behind the motel dorm. What's the first dorm again? Is that Jones? That's Jones, isn't it? I think it's Jones. And between the back and the fences of the houses,
Okay.
we put all the cars up behind there from one end to the other. And that was a good trick. Send people on scavenger hunts with clues. I remember putting a clue at the end of a crossing gate. Of course, we did it when the gate was down, so they have to wait for a train to come by in order to get just gags, It wasn't a co-ed school back then, so
Well, and speaking of co-education, you were certainly here at sort of the end years of when Randolph-Macon was a men's school, and then it became co-ed. How did you feel about it at the time, and what do you think now?
I didn't like it at the time.
Yeah.
It was a men's school, and it had tradition.
Right.
But you did have to go with the times. And over the long run, I think it was a good thing.
Well, certainly the information we have up in archives was it was a purely financial decision in the end that the school had to accept women or probably close. And certainly some alums have said over time that at the time they thought it would be better to close, but most have actually said, well, yeah.
Well, Randolph-Macon Women's College just went through the same thing.
Exactly. And 10 years down the line, their alums will probably be like, well, yeah, it's okay.
And I think the Randolph College men's basketball team beat Hampton-Sydney, which I think is
Oh, Hampton-Sydney's still holding out, aren't they?
They are.
Now, some people have said they wished girls were here when they were here.
Yeah. When you look back on it, the girls came here the year after I graduated. I'm going, wait a minute. Didn't have to burn all the gas going up the road.
Right. Okay. Can you think of any other changes to the school in the time that you were here? I mean, certainly, as I said, the late 60s were a huge
It was a different. I remember sitting in Crenshaw at the lottery for the draft when they're pulling the numbers, and all of us are just sitting there going, "What's going to be number one?" And
right.
you hear the groans and the moans, and as they got up higher in the numbers, you wouldn't be drafted. You hear cheers and everything. But that was an experience.
Did many of the guys from your class or guys that you know go to war early on, or not? Not till after.
So.
Okay.
Because by that time, the draft didn't matter to me because I was already in.
Right.
With OCS.
Okay. Now you mentioned you became a psychology major. Do you remember who your advisor was?
It was Dr. McEwen.
Okay.
But a lot of us leaned on Dr. Acey because he was younger.
Okay.
It was Dr. McEwen.
Okay. Now, what was the psychology curriculum like at the time? I mean, do you remember any of the classes you took or anything that impressed you about it? I bet you didn't study rats like they do now. It's lots of rats.
I guess the behavioral part was the best part.
Okay.
And really, when you look back, it almost seemed like a blur. It does.
Do you remember what buildings most of your classes were in?
Well, Haley was the English. Psych and history was, what's one on the corner here?
Fox.
Math and science were down at the corner. They didn't have the new.
Right, no Copley.
No Copley.
Oh, but that must have been built right after, because I think that was dedicated in like 73 or something.
Yeah, it was just a little building. They had to do something. They were bringing the women in here. That had to expand.
Yeah, because Smithy is actually incorporated into Copley.
Mm-hmm.
The psych people are in the Smithy part of the building.
Yeah, Smithy and Fox were almost identical.
Okay.
Those were basically the three academic buildings.
Okay. Well, can you tell us what you did after graduation? We know you went into the Navy.
I went into the Navy. Well, after I graduated, I substitute taught for the spring.
Oh,
before I went back up to Newport. And that was interesting.
Is that in New York?
In New York, in Massapequa. And what's interesting is not only was my father trustee here, but he was president of the school board up there for 25 years.
Mm.
Try going through school with that, too.
Well, I would say education was very important in your family then.
Yes. You had to have a good sense of humor, too. So I substitute taught, and about that time, the teacher struck. So I became, quote-unquote, scab, right?
Oh, no.
So I went and substituted the class. They still had school. And all the teachers knew me. So, but they were good-hearted. You know, they knew what was going on.
Did you teach one particular grade or subject, or just...
Mostly it was high school.
Okay.
And subject was mostly history.
Okay.
I did. But after that, went to Newport. Finished up in the fall. I had my choice of when I wanted to go back. I said, I want to spend the summer at the beach. So I was working at the beach. I was a lifeguard.
Jones Beach, or which beach?
Oh, it's Tobay Beach. It's next to
Okay.
Jones Beach.
Okay.
Which was nice because mostly all the people in town of Oyster Bay knew how to swim. Unlike on the weekends at Jones Beach where they came out from the city,
Drowned.
where they were
Not-
busy.
Yeah.
They didn't drown, but
Well.
lifeguards were busy.
Yes.
Was up OCS during the America Cup races, which was quite an event. They were sailing against Australia. That was a time when, well, nowadays you can leave OCS in civilian clothes. Back then you had to wear uniform to get off base. But that helped too, because you go down to Newport and they'd invite you aboard the boats to go out and see the race.
Right. Because you were one of them, really.
And let's see, during the summer, the first summer, this Newport Jazz Festival was going on. That was quite a thing.
Okay. Now, you were in the Navy for 2 years.
I was out in San Diego
Okay, and
then up in New Hampshire.
okay, and you were a rank of lieutenant commander.
Lieutenant.
Oh.
Lieutenant commander was when I got in the reserves.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You had to stay in the reserves for a while.
Okay.
And I did until I moved to Washington. And then I was an executive officer of a unit, a destroyer unit. And then, of course, when you go to Washington, like D.C., everything else is top heavy. So I was back to training officer, and I had done my time, and I just said I didn't want to do all the paperwork and everything else again.
Now, what did you do while you were in the Navy? What type of job did you do?
I was in communications.
Okay.
Stand a lot of watches. But it was fun. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. Because when I came out, I went to work for ESSO, which is now Exxon, and interviewed around, and most of the people you interviewed with, they said they'd pick a junior officer or anybody that came out with an MBA just because of the experience. They want to experience more than book learning and how to handle people. So that was a big plus.
How many years were you with Exxon, ESSO at the time?
They changed over to Exxon when I was there. I was there 72, 74 for 3 years.
Okay.
Then I took a year off, went back out to San Diego. Loved San Diego. Then I came back and got into the group insurance. And trained in Washington, D.C. Then I went to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I got hunted down by another company, Great West. So I moved up to the Washington area, Alexandria. I handled that area and handled the Richmond office. And then at a point in time, I just said, do something different, start out with my own business with a partner at first. And actually on deferred compensation, which for counties and cities, that type of thing. And went into the 401k business. And probably 2.5 years later, we parted ways. He took what we call the 457 business, and I stayed with the 401k and developed a product for associations, an IRA and a deferred annuity product that we solicited, and concentrate on small employers in the 401k. Put together a package that you have what they call iShares, investor shares. In order to get into it, you'd have to have a minimum of $5 million. Well, it's all pooled, so small businesses can take advantage of what big companies have. So that's what we concentrate on.
Okay, and along the way, you acquired a wife and 3 children.
Yes, indeed, down in North Carolina. I met her in North Carolina, and moved up to Washington. And she said I never proposed to her.
The wedding just happened.
It just happened. I said, "Come on up and let's look for houses." And I guess now we've been married, 30 and a half years. And have 7 grandchildren, which is fun. And in fact, tonight with Speaker Gingrich coming, my oldest grandson's coming. He's going to watch him. He's 14.
Good.
So.
He's probably gonna remember that his whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a very good student. Plus, I want to take a look at Randolph-Macon.
We're happy about that, too,
Yes,
then.
he's in National Junior Honor Society. He dives. He was in gymnastics. Now he dives. A little bit less stressful on his joints. But very dedicated. But he's looking forward to it.
Well, good. We're happy to have him coming. Now, you've certainly spent many years engaged with the college after graduation. How did you stay in contact with the college right after graduation? When did you sort of reconnect, or?
Right after graduation, I must admit, I really didn't. I knew what was going on because of my father. I guess he didn't. His last year was 83, I guess, as trustee. And that's when he retired from work. He was 70 and moved down to the northern neck of Virginia. So I knew what was sort of happening with the school, didn't pay much attention. Then I got involved with donating, and then they had me here for career night a couple of times. I was living in Washington. And I was asked to serve on the Board of Associates.
Which you did for a number of years.
9 years. I did. And then after that, it was the President's Society. I forget how long I've been on that. It's been a while. And in between, I guess it's after my father passed away, when he was leaving money to the college. And I just thought it'd be a good idea to pool things and have a scholarship. Because there's been a lot of Ameses here. In fact, I had to pull a sheet dating all the way back to 1899.
Actually, I think there was an earlier Ames. I was
Could have
looking up the
been.
Ameses in the 60 whatever edition of the alumni directory, and there were some back into the 1870s, and I wondered if they were all related.
I don't think the 18th. There's some in Norfolk.
Okay.
Ames's, and the one from the Eastern Shore. I know one of the family members was a chaplain here, but it wasn't an Ames. I don't think it was a
okay.
Betty. It's on over by the bench,
Okay.
by the old chapel.
Okay.
My mind just went. That's
Judy
what
would probably know if she were here. She's our
Yeah,
archivist.
it's not George Betty, which is my
Okay.
grandmother's, my
So it's,
father's mother's
Okay,
side.
so
Does
both sides have been
That's
okay.
incredible.
Both sides have been connected.
And my father's father went here for only 2 years. Then he went up to Cornell. He's a civil engineer. I never knew him. He passed away before I was born. Of course, my father. And there was uncles that went here.
And you mentioned a cousin who was here with
Yes.
you.
Yes. Tommy.
Is his last name Ames?
No, Sheehan.
Sheehan.
His middle name's Ames.
Okay.
I see it. I
My
imagine it could
my
be,
father's
so
sister.
called you Ames, but
Well, you briefly talked now about how you decided to create a scholarship. Can you talk a little bit more about your inspiration and, why you specified, the details of the scholarship for upperclassmen?
Well, it was an opportune time. Plus, I guess Estes was, matching.
Brown, Frank Brown.
Frank Brown, excuse me.
Right, the brown matching
I
grants.
passed a Estes truck on the way up. And it just stuck with me.
And Estes does like challenge.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
does the
He'd
challenge.
always do
Frank
challenges,
Brown.
So you're not far
Pardon
off,
me,
but-
yes. And I just thought it'd be a good time
Mhm.
to do it. And as far as deciding on what the criteria would be, I know as a freshman, especially a male, your head's not really into school. They should probably start college at 20. You know, well, you look over in Europe, a lot of them got to go in the service first before they go to school, college. And I really wanted somebody that wanted to know what they'd want to do. And the idea was behind it to put enough money in so that at a certain point in time, a rising junior would get it. And going into their senior year, if they qualified again, they would receive it again. At the same time, another rising junior would get it. So there'd be two students always getting it.
Okay, and let's see, you established that in 2005, and it's named the Ames Scholarship.
It should be the Ames Families.
It is Ames
Ah.
Family. It is Ames Families.
It's the
Okay.
Ames Family
Ames
Scholarship.
Family Scholarship.
Mhm.
That's wrong. So in addition to honoring your father, it's honoring everyone in the
Yes,
family.
the family that.
Your long connection to Randolph-Macon.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that's really the full amount of questions specifically that we had. Did you have anything to follow up on, Sarah? Anything more? Did you have any other things you'd like to tell us about what's Randolph-Macon has meant to you in your life?
It's probably meant more as I've gotten older than right after I graduated. You know, right after I graduated, you know, was off to see the world, so to speak, with the Navy. And so I never really thought about school afterwards until actually when I did move back to the D.C. area. You know, I did give money, you know, prior to that. But getting involved, I guess, just the locality where I was in the school, proximity, that it made it easier. I'm a type of person, I hate to do things, you know, by phone or whatever. You know, that's happening now when I'm traveling back and forth. But I like being here and seeing what's going on. Also, speak my mind. I know at one point when I was on the Board of Associates, Ed Lilly, Dr. Lilly, we were on the counseling committee, and I guess it's just here on a year when he got selected to be on the trustees, and I took over as chair, and I sort of changed the emphasis from counseling, so you know that, to career in counseling, what you want to do as you get out, you know, versus well, a person might have a problem, and I just wanted to change the focus, so that's what we did on that committee for the next 8 years. That was a good experience. But like I said, right after college, my mind was on other things. You know, school was over. It's,
Right.
you know, it's back behind me. And but now, like I said, I think more people get more involved as they mature in life.
Okay. If you had to summarize your Randolph-Macon days in a few words, what would you say about them if you had to kind of just describe it a little bit?
Informative, very helpful. As far as maturing, you know, the guidance of where you want to take yourself. You know, the experience of being away from home and having other influences around you was very helpful. I would not trade a small school education for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I did have offers and scholarships for big schools.
Mm-hmm.
But there, you just literally, unless you stand out in football or something else, you're just a number. And, probably the best for me was being a small school and having that individual experience with the professor and probably knowing more students back then.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that was in your dorm where you were, but lower classmen.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, in a larger school, if you played athletics, you're in an athletic dorm.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that you mingle with everybody. You got to see all walks of life.
Yeah, it's hard to be invisible at Randolph-Macon.
Mm-hmm. Especially freshman year when you had to wear the beanie.
Do you still have your beanie?
Yes. Yes.
Still the towel?
I stopped. No. Mm-mm. I had the beanie though. I always remember Snookums. He will never fade. Remember Snookums? He was a black gentleman. He would be at every game
Yeah, I've
with
heard
the
name
freshman
from
beanie
Community.
on.
Yeah, yeah, I have heard the name from some of the people in the Ashland community oral
Mhm.
histories have mentioned Snookums. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
He would always be wandering around campus during the day.
yeah. Now, were there many people from the community who came onto campus during the day?
No,
Did you have much interaction at all?
no, not really. Not like there is now. The school was a school.
Mm-hmm. No, I think the Ashland Theater was still open at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So you could at least go to movies in
Yes.
town.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And did you guys?
I think I went to one. That
Oh,
was
okay.
it.
Not a movie fanatic, huh?
Yeah, when we wanted to go out to eat, we went to the truck stop on the corner, or down to Speed and Briscoe, which is the other truck stop.
Okay.
Exit down, but they were on Route 1 then. Then
Mhm.
they moved over to the interstate. Then there was Ma's down the road, which is an old house. 2 guys and a curtain to go have a hamburger. That was about it.
Okay. Well, speaking of food, how was the dormitory food? How was the campus food?
Everybody complained about it, but you had mystery meat at every school.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think it's a USDA food group.
Yes. Overall, I don't think it's changed. You have more choice now.
Right.
You have this salad bar over here or something else, and now you just went through the line. You got what it was.
Okay. Well, unless you have anything else you'd like to share with us.
I have a question, speaking of the cafeteria in Ashland, at Town Folk. Lester Jackson, did he work here when you
Mhm.
were?
Yes, Lester. I knew him before I came here
Oh, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
with my father. Lester was probably one of the best athletes my father said around.
Hmm.
I think he was a heck of a baseball player. He might have played in the Negro League for a time.
Mm-hmm.
But Lester was a outstanding individual. In fact, his wife used to do my laundry. Take it down there and pay her to do the laundry. And always liked Lester.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of laundry, did a lot of the students have somebody do their laundry for them, or take it home, or?
Probably took it home.
Okay, because
A lot of
we
them.
we heard from students in the 30s who literally put it on the mail train and sent it home to their mothers. so they still took it home.
Yes. I had no choice. New York was something I couldn't.
Right.
But that worked out.
Okay.
What do they do now?
They do it themselves,
Or take it home.
or take it home. Yeah. There's washing machines and such in the dorms.
Oh, there are.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they do it. My father used to accuse me of doing floor washing. And then on the floor long enough, it's clean.
Mm-hmm.
So that, when I was like in high school,
Just buy dry clean only, right? Then you don't have to wash it.
I think there was a laundromat around when we were here. I'm trying to remember. There too much.
Yeah, what was Ashland like? I mean, other
There
than
was-
the
there
truck
was-
stops, there probably wasn't
Yeah,
much
there
for the
was-
students.
There was a separation, really, between the town and the students. I remember football practice, the town policeman, aptly nicknamed Deputy Dog and Bullet Bob. That's what we used to call them. They'd come over and sit under a big old oak tree and watch football practice.
Huh.
We always thought you could rob the town blind.
Just during football practice.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming today.
Well, thank
We
you.
certainly learned a few more things than we'd known before, as we always do. We certainly appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I guess there was one more story. I
Oh, absolutely.
I can tell my father.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you heard it. When they greased the railroad tracks.
Oh, don't know about that one. Uh-oh.
That's- Oh, well, they can't be prosecuted for anything.
No.
I don't know if my father was involved or not. But somebody did grease the railroad tracks in Ashland and backed the trains up for an hour.
Oh, no.
It's awful.
Well, they're
because-
steam engines, they had to
Right,
get going.
yes.
I always remember him telling me that story.
Anything else? Any other recollections of things he said about the college?
Now, he did most of his partying down in Norfolk
Okay.
uh,
Now, did
during
he
the summer.
did he have a car when he was here, or did he take
No.
the train, or?
Probably took the train down
Okay.
from New York when he came.
And he would go down to Norfolk to family, or?
Family.
Mm-hmm.
His uncle, my great uncle,
Mm-hmm.
lived in Norfolk. He was vice president, I guess, back then, Virginia Power.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any more crazy stories than he has. I think that was the only one that
Well,
really meant anything.
I like that one.
That's awful. It probably affected the trains for
All the way to New York.
Yes.
for a few days
It
too,
would've.
by the time you think about it.
The ripple effect.
I
Yeah.
just
a
said
little
they-
Randolph-Macon student.
Yeah, they ran out of sand here, so they had to bring it out from Richmond to
Oh,
put on
no.
the tracks. That's what they said.
Oh, no.
That's awful.
Well, again, thank you so
Well,
very
thank
much.
you.
We appreciate it.
Mhm.
They're so
Okay, we're back on.
Oh, let's see. We're just talking about pranks going on. I guess it's graduation weekend, and Frank Brown Plaza just opened up the fountain, and somebody the night before had put soap suds in, so it looked like a big bubble bath the next morning, and they were just cleaning them out. But the fountain was back to normal when graduation exercise occurred.
Well, even today, we have golf carts rented for Speaker Gingrich, to
Mhm.
shuttle him around various places. And then we have part of the very sort of choreographed schedule for Speaker Gingrich includes knowing where the golf carts are at every moment, because students have such a capacity to ride off in them and do various things. They've never damaged them, but they have been lost for days and found in the most ridiculous places. It's the secret life of golf carts on the Randolph-Macon campus.
Indeed.
Yeah. Student pranks. Students will try just about anything.
That's what keeps it interesting.
Yes. When we're
Old
that
ideas.
Yeah, when we're that young, we're not afraid.
No.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, and your yearbook photo with your fraternity, everybody standing around on all the roofs of the house, and
And
I
we
mean,
were sober.
everybody would be appalled by that. That actually, you guys would get expelled at this point if you tried that. Did you sunbathe on the roofs or hang out on the roofs otherwise, or was it just a
No.
really good photo op?
It was a good photo op. Indeed.
Now, are you one on the roof or on the porch? Do
I
you
don't remember.
Oh,
I got it here, I think. Or is it the year before?
yeah. Yeah, the photo that we're talking about, the
Is it in the back? Or?
fraternity is in front of the house, and they're half of them are on the porch roof, and they're on the high roof of the house, and some are actually on the porch. And that's one way to get them all together.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. All depends when this was taken.
Yeah, you're listed there, but that may not necessarily
That may
correlate with the
not
pictures.
be, yeah. I don't know if I was there or not.
It was a very creative shot.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I was there.
Yeah, I looked at it, but they're so distant it was hard to
Mm-hmm.
to identify.
I don't know if I might be in front of Andy. In there.
No, you are on the roof.
Way up on the roof, the tall roof. Well, I'm sure you'd remember if you missed that kind of an opportunity.
Yeah, that's probably why everybody was sober at that point.
Well, thank you again.
Thank
We
you
do
again.
appreciate
Mhm.
it.